pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please, Brianna.
Granquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Weeblehouse.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
File.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council member present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Would then look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, takes us to item number 17 on our regular agenda. We'd look for a motion to consider approval of an agreement for services between Street Scan Incorporated and the City of Norfolk for pavement inspection services and asset management software for an amount not to exceed $43,955.
So moved. Second.
Motion second, and Steve Ramus, our city engineer, some background on this, please.
Mayor and council members, starting back about 2006, 2007, we did our first contract for a street scanning as part of our pavement management system. Since then, we've had one other scan that occurred in 2016. That contract runs us right about $45,000 per scan. This contract would replace that. That's the prior service we were getting was from a company out of Minnesota. They do a lot of work up in Minnesota. Not a lot of work down in this part of the country. And so as we've been looking at our streets and street conditions and talking about how we want to move forward with our pavement management system, looking at the potential for how that links into our GIS system and potentially how we would use that as a function of our asset management process. This company here isn't that old. They're only about 5 years old. I believe they started around 2015. Since then, though, they've brought on 1,300 communities around the country, fairly evenly distributed around the country. They use artificial intelligence as part of their process, and that's kind of what they are really selling with this product. They do a full street scan, very much like what Google Earth does. There's a little car and camera that runs down the road that does 360-degree images. Our proposal does purchase those 360-degree images, so we would have access to those as city staff. And then there's a van that runs down the road and does a scan of the road, and those images are overlaid with that scan, and that's where the artificial intelligence comes in, reads that all the roughness, the cracks, the spalling, and then creates a pavement condition number based on what it sees and loads that up in graphical format into the computer system, either by block or by multi-block. We then have the ability to go into the system. The software internally is fairly user-friendly. We can go in there then and apply costs to take a segment of street and move it from a certain condition index and move that up. So if it's full repair or full remove and replace, if it's a mill and overlay, if it's a fog seal or chip seal or slurry seal, all those things have different costs, and they increase the longevity and condition of that street a certain amount. So this software allows us to easily go in there and put all that information in as we're doing street repairs, as we're doing street maintenance, panel replacements, crack seals, slurry seals. And so the other thing we can do then is we can go in there and plug dollars in and start to do forecasting. So if we have we're using $500,000 a year for maintenance projects, we put that in there. $2.5 million a year roughly in reconstruction or new construction. We can put that in there, and we can look at the software will will track over a period of time how that's going to increase the condition of our streets. So it'll be a very useful tool in terms of looking at our budgets, how we're spending those budgets, and are we getting the biggest bang for those as we're selecting projects to work on. We see this as probably something that we would do every 3 years at least for the next couple scans, and then once we start to see a condition curve, we could probably back off of that and scan that every 5 or 6 years again. But talk to other communities. I believe they're working, I don't want to mention the name, but they're working in at least one other community or contracting with one other community here in Nebraska, a similar sized community. They are also, as we're exploring asset management systems to deploy within public works, they would be, again, all the information they have would import into or lay up inside of our GIS system and an asset management system. So pretty exciting stuff right there. Very, I think the opportunity it brings to us to manage that infrastructure and that asset is quite tremendous.
So Steve, the investment required to do this is obviously a lot less than what we would invest ourselves if we wanted to own that system to do it and then plug it into our GIS?
In terms of doing it manually, or?
Well, in terms of buying the equipment, the same equipment that they use, not something we would have in our street department, right?
No, there is a consultant that we do work with regularly that is exploring that with them, and it's out of reach. It's just out of reach. You're $500,000.
Okay, figured as much. Well, I think people do kind of want to know.
Right, and then
So-
you'd use it once and it'd sit for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, all right, good enough, thank you.
Just from a time frame on this, with the approval of the contract, they would be here. We need clean streets, streets that you can scan and see cracks and not snow covered. So we'll see when that occurs, but I would say they'll be here somewhere in March timeframe. It'll take once they get the scan done, it'll take about 12 weeks to turn the data around, and then we'd have that data to start working with. And we would use that as a function of starting to look at our 1- and 6-year program, and are we plugging those dollars into the right places?
And see, they scan throughout the community.
They
So-
scan 100% of the streets, our entire street system.
Well, we've talked about this a lot, the need to reinvest in the street system and reform some of the practices that we have to make sure that we bring modernized infrastructure throughout the community, and the long-term effort that takes. And I think this is a big step forward in that, investing in the newest technologies to allow us to be able to strategically plan for street maintenance and preservation. So from my perspective, this is a prudent investment.
Steve, on this equipment they use to scan, we had a discussion on this a few months ago about some bridges and inspections that we had done. Does this thing be able to do the same thing, like go over that concrete surface on a bridge and tell you what's down there? It's not a ground penetrating type,
No,
it's just a picture.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Next, number 18, would look for a motion to consider approval of a professional engineering services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for the Norfolk Levee Flood Response Project for an amount not to exceed $28,525.
Your Honor, I'd make that motion.
Second.
Motion second, and again, Steve, some background on this, please.
Mayor and council, following the flood of last March, we engaged HDR since they were doing our levee recertification. We contacted them to come out and do a post-flood evaluation of the levee. They did that back early part of April. The cost for that was a little over $26,000. Since then, we've had them engaged in some other things. This is a formal contract just to put in place for our records in terms of what we did and what they did. And we have not paid them for that yet either, so this would be the mechanism to pay them for that service.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Any questions on that?
Steve, is there hope we get some reimbursement back from
Yes.
FEMA once?
So this has
we go
been,
through their
this
lengthy
has been
process?
submitted to FEMA as part of the next contract here. But as we're working on those repairs inside the levee and the costs and reimbursement, that, yes, that is part of that.
Okay, thank you.
I think she has to turn it on.
Any other questions? Hearing none, please vote.
We got one missing the other. All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 19, entertain a motion to consider approval of a professional engineering services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for the FEMA Public Assistance Levy Repair Project for an amount not to exceed $247,170.
So move, Your Honor.
Second?
Motion and second. And Steve, once again, background, please.
Mayor and council, as we continue to work with FEMA on those levee repairs, again, engaging, we had selected HDR as the consultant for those repairs. This would be a contract to put in place specifically to start working on those. FEMA's pushing pretty hard to try and get some of that stuff wrapped up. The primary services, primary design services this is covering is within the levee itself. The Corps of Engineers is working on a project that they'll be letting very soon to restore, repair everything around the bridges. It'll be repairing the bike trails that go underneath the bridges there at Norfolk Avenue and Benjamin Avenue. But there are a few things that the Corps is not going to address, and specifically there are 5 outlet structures in there that they are not going to address, and there is a conversation around how we're going to manage the low flow channel. And so this contract with HDR allows them to move forward and start to answer some questions that FEMA has in terms of scope of work, cost of work, and then allows us to move towards a preliminary design for those repairs. It does seem like a lot of money. The flood bonds that we have in place would be paying for that. Again, this is reimbursable, 75% federal, 12.5% state, and so we would have a 12.5% share of this.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions, council? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Plugged in.
And item number 20 would look for a motion to consider approval to award a contract to Spawn Ranch Incorporated of Los Angeles, California for the Miracle Skate Park Improvements Project for an amount of $534,095.57.
Your Honor, I'd make that motion.
Second?
Motion second, and Steve, once again, background on this, please.
So this is the culmination of a process wherein we engaged Spawn Ranch. They came up with a couple concepts, brought those to the community. We had a meeting out on site. Several folks attended that meeting, provided input back to Spawn Ranch in terms of what they liked from the 2 different designs. And Spawn Ranch went back then, combined that information. That is what you see in front of you. The primary skate park, which is what we would be awarding today, is the big square pad kind of to the north side of that document. The track that sits on the south side of that document is what's called a pump track. That was something that was expressed as being desirable at some point. And the site the site accommodated that quite well, and so they did incorporate that into the final concept. But again, that would be something that could be brought to the table at a later date for design and construction. So the project itself, again, is everything to the north. The bids came in a little bit over budget, and so there have been some negotiations, some conversations, and some cuts to get to a balanced project. Primarily, the cuts are not going to impact anything that you would see up in the square pad or the skate park itself. The cuts are that steel arch beam with the leaves on it. That was $30,000. The pad, the concrete pad that the bleachers are sitting on, that was $19,000. And then there's just right around 900 tons of aggregate underneath the skate park itself that support all of that concrete structure. When they bid that, it was quite high in terms of getting that aggregate base here. They've been looking at other sources. They have identified a source that's going to be at least an $8,000 deduct, and they're continuing to have a conversation, see if they can't find a little bit more there. So right now we have $50,000 in change orders. Those change orders would be implemented once we have an executed contract. We can't implement change orders without a contract. So what's before you is recommendation to approve a contract for $534,000 and $534,095.57. And again, once we actually execute that contract, we will execute a change order for $57,000 at the same time. The project cost then is $477,095.57. The intent would be to start as soon as they can get onto the site. We also, when you look at the bid tabs that are included in the package, there's a deduct alternate for slab demolition. And so we have accepted that deduct, and we will remove that with city forces and save that $20,000. Okay. Likewise, the bleacher pads, we're not going to leave it without bleacher pads. We'll use city forces to build the bleacher pads. We can do that for about $2,500. So those will be there.
Completion date, Steve?
Completion date, June 21st, 2020 is Go Skateboarding Day.
All right.
And all efforts will be made to make sure that thing is open and ready for Go Skateboarding Day.
I will dust mine off.
Any other
Any other
questions?
questions for Steve?
But the shade structure's not part of this, or it is part of it?
I don't believe the shade structure. Pat, do you know? It is not part of it. It is not part of it.
Didn't think so, but, okay.
And just for public's sake, the evolution of this process, I don't recall exactly what year it was where we had a group of people from the local skate community come to the council. 2013 or 14, I was thinking, who made an impassioned case for overhauling our skate park. And at that time, if I remember correctly, the council said, we will show our support of that by committing a certain amount of dollars once a certain threshold was raised privately. That led to a collaboration of the city working with members of the skate community to apply for a state grant to help pay for this park, which came to us, was awarded to us through the Department of Tourism. And I think that grant was worth $425,000. Is that correct, Jan?
That's correct.
So a big portion of the funding for this project comes from the State Department of Tourism via a competitive grant that the city of Norfolk was awarded, and also in combination with those original dollars that were committed by the council 5 or 6 years ago. So it was kind of a long time coming, but it was a collaboration. A lot of people worked together, a lot of hard work, and help from Jan Merrill at Northeast Nebraska Economic Development District to apply for that grant. And so it's a real success story in a lot of ways, I think. So I think hopefully the outcome will be good and something we can all be proud of. Any other questions or comments on this or the process?
I just had one comment, Your Honor. This project did take a long time to come to fruition. There was a lot of work done by the citizens on this, and I think it's a neat partnership that was put together. I remember when we first started talking about this, how much involvement we had from the public. And I think that's why the project is getting done today. And it was really neat to see everybody work together to be able to come to one thing that's up on the board. It was just a neat project to be part of.
Well said. Anything else? If not, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay. With that, that concludes our agenda. We are adjourned.
In that restroom.